Claire Whitmore felt the world spinning around her. One moment, she was standing on the sidewalk, watching her driver pull away in the black car. The next moment, her stomach twisted like someone was squeezing it with both hands. "Oh, no," she whispered. "Not now. Please, not now." Claire was going to have a baby, a beautiful baby boy, but he wasn't supposed to come yet. The doctor said she still had 7 more weeks to wait. 7 more weeks until she could hold him in her arms. But something was wrong. Very, very wrong. Her legs felt like jelly. Her eyes couldn't see clearly anymore. Everything looked blurry, like she was looking through foggy glass. The buildings around her seemed to wave back and forth like tall trees in a storm. Claire tried to walk, but her feet wouldn't listen. She stumbled and fell against the wall of a big building. Her hand pressed against the rough bricks as another sharp pain shot through her belly. "Help!" she called out. But her voice was too quiet, too weak. People walked past her. Lots and lots of people. Men in fancy suits carrying briefcases. Women in high heels talking on their phones. Teenagers with backpacks laughing with their friends. But nobody stopped. Nobody looked at her. Claire's heart pounded in her chest like a drum. She could feel her baby moving inside her, pushing, struggling. Tears rolled down her cheeks as another contraction. That's what the squeezing feeling was called. Made her cry out in pain. "Please," she begged, reaching out her hand toward the people passing by. "Please help me. My baby." A woman in a red dress walked right past her, without even turning her head. A man in a blue uniform stepped around her like she was a piece of trash on the ground. Nobody cared. Claire felt herself sliding down the wall. Her legs couldn't hold her up anymore. She was going to fall. She was going to collapse right here on this dirty sidewalk, and nobody would help her. Nobody would save her baby. "God, please," she whispered, closing her eyes. "Please send someone. Anyone." That's when she heard the voice. "Lady, you okay?" Claire opened her eyes. Standing in front of her was a little boy. He was the smallest, dirtiest little boy she had ever seen. His skin was dark brown, covered in smudges of dirt and grime. His clothes were torn and ragged, a shirt that was 3 sizes too big and pants with holes in the knees. He had no shoes on his feet, no shoes at all. His little toes were black with dirt, but it was his eyes that Claire noticed most. Big, brown eyes that looked at her with worry, real worry, the kind of worry that only someone who truly cares would have. I need help," Claire managed to say. My baby is coming." The boy's eyes went wide. He couldn't have been more than 6 years old, maybe 7, but he didn't run away. He didn't ignore her like all the adults had done. Instead, he said something that made Claire's heart squeeze with hope. "I'll get help. I promise. I'll be fast." And then he ran. Claire watched through blurry eyes as the little barefoot boy darted into the crowd of people. He ran up to a man in a gray suit. Mister, that lady needs help. She's having a baby." The man pushed him away. "Get lost, kid." The boy didn't give up. He ran to a woman carrying shopping bags. "Please, there's a lady who needs a doctor. She's really sick." The woman pulled her bags away from him, like he was trying to steal them. "Go away." Claire felt another wave of pain crash over her. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. All she could do was pray that the little boy would find someone, anyone, who would listen. The boy tried again and again. He ran from person to person, tugging on sleeves, jumping in front of people, begging them to help. But everyone ignored him. Everyone pushed him away. Claire saw a police officer standing on the corner. "The officer," she tried to shout, but her voice came out as barely a whisper. "Get the officer." But the little boy had already seen him. He sprinted toward the officer, his bare feet slapping against the concrete. Officer, please. There's a lady who needs an ambulance. She's having a baby right now." The officer looked down at the dirty little boy and frowned. "Where are your parents, kid? You shouldn't be out here alone." "Forget about me," the boy shouted. His voice was desperate now, almost crying. "The lady, she's over there. She's going to die if you don't help her." Something in the boy's voice must have gotten through, because the officer finally looked where he was pointing. He saw Claire slumped against the wall, her face pale, her hand clutching her belly. The officer's eyes went wide. He grabbed his radio. "This is Officer Davis. I need an ambulance at 5th and Market. Immediately. Pregnant woman in distress." The little boy ran back to Claire and dropped to his knees beside her. "It's okay," he said softly, taking her hand. His hand was so small, so dirty, but so warm. "They're coming. The ambulance is coming. You're going to be okay. Your baby's going to be okay." Claire squeezed his hand as tears streamed down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much. What's your name?" "Malik," the boy said quietly. "Malik," Claire repeated. "You saved us. You saved my baby." In the distance, Claire could hear the wail of sirens getting closer and closer. The world was still spinning, and the pain was still there, but she wasn't alone anymore. A little boy with no shoes, no home, and no family had done what dozens of adults wouldn't do. He had stopped. He had cared. He had saved her life. The ambulance doors slammed shut with a loud bang. Claire lay on a stretcher inside, with wires and tubes connected to her arms. 2 paramedics in blue uniforms worked quickly, checking her heartbeat, checking her baby's heartbeat, asking her questions she could barely answer. But Claire wasn't thinking about any of that. She was looking out the small window in the back door, watching Malik get smaller and smaller as the ambulance pulled away. He stood on the sidewalk, alone, watching her go. His little hand was raised in a wave. "Wait!" Claire tried to sit up. "The boy, we have to bring him with us." "Ma'am, please lie down," one of the paramedics said gently, pressing her shoulder back onto the stretcher. "We need to focus on you and your baby right now." "But he saved me. He has nowhere to go." "We'll tell the police about him. They'll take care of it. Right now, you need to stay calm." Claire wanted to argue, but another contraction gripped her body, and all she could do was cry out in pain. By the time they reached St. Mercy Medical Center, Claire couldn't think about anything except the baby. Doctors and nurses surrounded her, rushing her down bright white hallways, through swinging doors, into a room with big lights overhead. "You're going to be okay," a kind doctor told her. "Both of you are going to be okay." And they were. 3 hours later, Claire lay in a quiet hospital room. The contractions had stopped. The doctors had given her medicine and fluids through an 4-tube in her arm. Her baby was still inside her, still safe, still growing. The doctor, a woman with gray hair and gentle eyes, sat on the edge of Claire's bed. "You were severely dehydrated," the doctor explained. "Your body was shutting down. If you had been out there just 10 more minutes without help." She paused and shook her head. "Let's just say that little boy saved 2 lives today." Claire felt tears fill her eyes again. "Where is he? The boy who helped me, Malik. Is he here?" The nurse standing nearby shook her head sadly. "He left before we could get his information. No one knows where he went." "What?" Claire's heart sank. No. We have to find him. He was barefoot. He looked so hungry, so cold." "The police are looking for him," the nurse assured her. Officer Davis filed a report. But Claire knew how these things worked. A homeless child in a big city? He could disappear like smoke. He could be anywhere. The door burst open, and a tall man with dark hair rushed in. "Claire." "Matthew." Claire reached for her husband as he ran to her bedside and wrapped his arms around her carefully. Matthew Whitmore was a rich man. Very rich. He owned part of 3 big technology companies and lived in a house with 12 bedrooms. He wore expensive suits and expensive watches and drove expensive cars. But right now, with tears running down his face, he just looked like a scared husband who almost lost his wife. "I got here as fast as I could," he said, his voice shaking. "When the hospital called me, I thought... He couldn't finish the sentence. "We're okay," Claire whispered, holding him tight. "Me and the baby were both okay." "What happened?" "Your driver said he dropped you off to walk and then..." "A little boy saved us," Claire interrupted. She pulled back to look at her husband's face. Matthew, A homeless little boy about 6 years old saw me collapse on the sidewalk. Everyone else, dozens of people, they all walked right past me. But this one little boy stopped. He ran and ran until someone finally called for help. Matthew's eyes widened. A 6-year-old did that. His name is Malik. He was so small, Matthew, so dirty and thin, no shoes on his feet, but he had the biggest heart I've ever seen. Claire grabbed her husband's hand. We have to find him. We have to thank him properly. We have to help him. Matthew nodded slowly. Okay, tell me everything you remember about him. Claire described Malik, his torn clothes, his bare feet, the cut on his cheek, his big brown eyes. She told Matthew about how Malik had tried to get help from person after person, how he'd been pushed away and ignored, but never gave up. He held my hand, Claire said softly, and he told me everything would be okay. A 6-year-old child who has nothing comforted me. Matthew stood up, his jaw set with determination. I'll find him. I promise you, Claire, I'll find this boy. And Matthew Whitmore was a man who always kept his promises. The next morning, while Claire rested in the hospital, Matthew went back to 5th and Market Street. He talked to shopkeepers. He talked to people who worked in the area. He showed them a drawing that Claire had made of Malik. Have you seen this boy? Most people shook their heads. Some said they'd seen street kids around but didn't pay attention to them. One woman who worked in a coffee shop said she sometimes saw a little boy digging through the trash behind a bakery next door. Matthew's heart hurt at those words. Digging through trash? For food? He walked behind a bakery, and there, sitting next to a green dumpster, was Malik. The little boy looked even smaller in the daylight. He was curled up against the brick wall, his arms wrapped around his knees, shivering. His eyes were half closed, like he was too tired to keep them open. Matthew approached slowly, not wanting to scare him. Malik. The boy's head snapped up. His eyes went wide with fear, and he started to scramble to his feet, ready to run. Wait. Please don't run, Matthew said gently, holding up his hands. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm Claire's husband. The lady you helped yesterday? She's my wife. Malik stopped moving, but he didn't relax. He watched Matthew like a scared animal watches a predator. Is the lady okay? Malik asked quietly. And the baby? They're both perfect, Matthew said, and he felt his throat get tight with emotion. Because of you. You saved them both, Malik. Malik looked down at his dirty feet. I didn't want the baby to die. Matthew pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. It was thick with money. Lots of money. Enough money to buy food for months. New clothes, maybe even a place to stay. This is for you, Matthew said, holding it out. It's a reward for saving my wife and my son. Malik stared at the envelope but didn't take it. You can buy anything you want, Matthew continued. Food, clothes, shoes. I don't want money, Malik said so quietly that Matthew almost didn't hear him. Matthew blinked in surprise. You don't want it? Malik shook his head. He looked up at Matthew with those big brown eyes, and Matthew saw something in them that broke his heart into pieces. Hope. Desperate, fragile hope. Can I? Malik's voice trembled. Can I go somewhere where people talk to me nice? Like your wife did? Matthew felt like someone had punched him in the chest. This little boy, this child who had nothing, didn't want money. He didn't want toys or food or clothes. He wanted kindness. He wanted to be treated like he mattered. Matthew slowly folded the envelope and put it back in his pocket. Then he knelt down so he was at eye level with Malik. What if, Matthew said carefully, you came home with me? Malik's eyes went even wider. Home. To live with us. With me and Claire. Would you like that? For a long moment, Malik just stared. Then, so slowly, he nodded his head. Matthew held out his hand. Come on then. Let's go home. Malik looked at Matthew's hand, like it was the most precious thing in the world. Then, with his small, dirty hand, he reached out and took it. The Whitmore house was the biggest building Malik had ever seen. It had tall, white columns in the front, a fountain with water that sparkled in the sunlight, and more windows than Malik could count. As Matthew's car pulled up the long driveway, Malik pressed his face against the window. his mouth hanging open. "This is where you live," he whispered. "This is where we live now," Matthew corrected gently. But when they walked through the big wooden doors, Malik didn't feel happy. He felt scared. Everything was so clean, so white, so perfect. The floors were shiny like mirrors. The furniture looked like it belonged in a museum. Even the air smelled expensive, like flowers and something fancy that Malik didn't have a name for. Malik looked down at his dirty feet and saw the black footprints he was leaving on the beautiful white floor. "I'm making it dirty," he said, his voice panicking. I'm sorry. He tried to back toward the door. Hey, it's okay," Matthew said, putting a gentle hand on Malik's shoulder. "Floors can be cleaned. Don't worry about it." A kind-looking woman with gray hair appeared. She was wearing an apron and had a warm smile. "This must be Malik. I'm Rosa. I help take care of the house." "Are you hungry, sweetheart?" Malik's stomach growled loudly, answering for him, but he shook his head. "I don't got no money to pay for food." Rosa's smile got even warmer. "Oh, honey, you don't need money here. This is your home now. Come on, let me make you something good to eat." That night, Rosa made a big dinner: roast chicken with crispy skin, mashed potatoes with butter, green beans, and fresh bread that was still warm from the oven. The kind of dinner that Malik had only seen through restaurant windows. But when Rosa put a plate in front of him, Malik didn't touch it. He sat at the huge dining table, a table so big that 10 people could sit around it, and just stared at the food. His hand stayed in his lap. His eyes looked down. Matthew said gently, "Aren't you hungry?" "I ain't allowed to eat at tables," Malik said quietly. Matthew and Rosa exchanged a sad look. "Says who?" Matthew asked. Malik shrugged. "At the shelter, they said kids like me eat on the floor or outside. We're too dirty for tables." Matthew felt anger rise in his chest. Not at Malik, but at the people who had made this child feel so worthless. "Well, that rule doesn't exist here," Matthew said firmly. "At this table, you eat with us, as part of our family." But Malik still didn't eat. He was too scared, too confused. This didn't make sense to him. When bedtime came, things got even harder. Rose had prepared a beautiful bedroom for Malik, a room with a big soft bed, fluffy pillows, warm blankets, and even some stuffed animals sitting on the dresser. The walls were painted a calm blue color, and there were stars that glowed in the dark on the ceiling. "This is your room," Matthew said, opening the door. Malik walked in slowly, looking around like he was in a dream. He touched the bed carefully, pressing his hand into the soft mattress. Then he grabbed a blanket and a pillow and lay down on the floor. "Malik, the bed is for you," Matthew said, confused. "Beds ain't for kids like me," Malik said, curling up on the hard floor. "I sleep on floors. That's where I belong." Matthew felt his heart breaking all over again. "Malik, please." Malik's voice was tiny now, almost crying. "Please don't make me sleep up there. I'll mess it up. I'll make it dirty. Just let me stay here on the floor. I'm good on floors. I promise." Matthew didn't know what to say. He wanted to pick Malik up and put him to bed, to tell him he deserved soft things and warm things and good things. But he could see the fear in the little boy's eyes. This was going to take time. Claire came home from the hospital 2 days later. The doctor said she needed a rest, to take it easy, but the first thing she did was go find Malik. She found him sitting in the corner of his room, still on the floor, holding one of the stuffed animals, a brown teddy bear. "Hi, Malik," Claire said softly, sitting down on the floor next to him. "Hi, Miss Claire." Malik looked at her belly. "Is the baby still okay?" "He's perfect, because of you." Claire reached out and took Malik's hand. "Can I tell you something?" Malik nodded. "When I was a little girl," Claire said, "I was scared of a lot of things. Scared of the dark, scared of loud noises, scared of being alone. And my mama, she used to sit with me just like this and tell me that it's okay to be scared. But she also told me that I was brave, even when I didn't feel brave." Malik listened carefully. "You're brave too, Malik," Claire continued. "The bravest person I've ever met. And brave people, they deserve soft beds and warm food and people who love them. She squeezed his hand gently. "Will you let us love you?" Malik's bottom lip trembled. "Why? Why do you want to love me? I ain't special. I'm just a street kid." "You saved my life," Claire said, tears rolling down her cheeks. "You saved my baby's life. You're the most special person in the world to me." That night, for the first time, Malik slept in the bed. The weeks that followed were hard. Malik would wake up screaming from nightmares. He would hide food in his room because he was scared it would disappear. He would flinch every time someone raised their voice, even if they weren't angry. But slowly, very slowly, things got better. After 2 weeks, Matthew heard something he thought he'd never hear. Malik laughed, really laughed. Rose had told a silly joke about a chicken crossing the road, and Malik had burst out laughing, his whole face lighting up with joy. If you're enjoying the story of love and hope, please hit that share button and subscribe for more heartwarming stories that will touch your soul. After a month, Malik started calling Claire and Matthew by their first names instead of Miss and Mr. And when Claire went into labor, real labor this time, Malik refused to leave the hospital. He sat in the waiting room all night long, clutching his teddy bear, his eyes wide with worry. Matthew tried to get him to sleep, but Malik shook his head. "I gotta make sure they're okay," Malik insisted. "I gotta make sure the baby comes out safe." At 6:32 in the morning, Claire gave birth to a healthy baby boy. They named him Daniel. When the nurses finally let Malik come into the room, he walked very slowly, very carefully. He stared at the tiny baby wrapped in a blue blanket in Claire's arms. "Want to hold him?" Claire asked. Malik's eyes went huge. I can. Of course." Matthew helped Malik sit in a chair, and Claire carefully placed baby Daniel in his arms. Malik held the baby like he was made of glass, barely breathing, terrified of dropping him. Daniel opened his tiny eyes and looked right at Malik. "Hi," Malik whispered. I'm your big brother." Those words, big brother, made Malik's eyes fill with tears. Happy tears. "I'm going to protect you," Malik promised the baby. "I'm going to make sure nobody ever hurts you. I promise." Matthew and Claire both had to wipe their eyes as they watched Malik bond with his new baby brother. 6 months passed. 6 months of family dinners. 6 months of bedtime stories. 6 months of homework help and playground visits and movie nights on the couch. 6 months of Malik learning that he was safe, that he was wanted, that he was loved. And then came the day in the courtroom. Malik wore a new suit, his very first suit ever. It was dark blue and made him look like a little businessman. His hair was cut neat and clean. His shoes, his very first real shoes, were shiny and black. He sat between Claire and Matthew in front of a judge, a serious-looking woman with glasses and a black robe. "Malik," the judge said kindly, "do you understand what adoption means?" Malik thought for a moment. He remembered all the big words the lawyers had used, words like permanent and legal guardian and parental rights. But to Malik, it meant something much simpler. "It means I don't got to run no more," he said quietly. The judge's stern face softened into a smile. "That's exactly what it means, sweetheart." She stamped the papers with a loud thunk, and just like that, Malik was officially Malik Whitmore. He had a last name now, a family name. He had a family. Claire pulled him into a hug, crying happy tears. Matthew wrapped his arms around both of them. Even baby Daniel, sitting in a stroller nearby, seemed to understand something important had happened because he clapped his tiny hands and giggled. That night, back at home, Matthew stood in Malik's doorway watching him sleep. The little boy was finally in his bed, not on the floor, but in his bed, curled up under the covers with his teddy bear. Claire came up behind Matthew and slipped her hand into his. "He's ours now," she whispered. "Really ours." "He was always ours," Matthew said, "from the moment he held your hand on that sidewalk." Matthew thought about his life before Malik. He'd been so focused on making money, on business deals, on being successful. He'd thought success meant having a big house and expensive cars and lots of money in the bank. But now, looking at this little boy who'd had nothing but gave everything, Matthew understood what real success looked like. "I thought I had everything, Matthew said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. I had money. I had a big house. I had a good job. But it took a little boy with nothing to show me what love really looks like. Claire leaned her head on his shoulder. He saved more than just my life that day. He saved all of us. And she was right. Malik had saved them all. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring true stories of hope, kindness, and the power of love. Because sometimes the smallest people make the biggest difference. This story shows that real wealth isn't measured in money. It's measured in love, kindness, and the family we choose to build.